果你想娶我，第一，彩礼呢不能低于600。
If you want to marry me, first, the bride price can't be less than 6 million RMB, about 845,000 US dollars, and 10 million, about 1,408,000 US dollars, would be even better. Second, after marriage, you must let me live in a top-tier luxury mansion like Thompson Riviera or Tang Chingipin. Third, you have to take me traveling around the world frequently. This is the experience of a 35-year-old guy who recently came to me for consultation. Let me first introduce his situation. His conditions are quite good. He's from Shanghai, owns a house and a car, has an annual income of around 500,000 renminbi, about 70,400 US dollars, stable job, and is honest and down to earth. The main reason he's still single is his narrow social circle and introverted personality, so even when he meets someone he likes, he doesn't dare to take the initiative. In May this year, his family introduced him to a divorced kindergarten teacher with a daughter. At first, he couldn't really accept her status as divorced with a child. But after getting to know her, he found her very proactive, with a great figure, high emotional intelligence, gentle and considerate, making him feel very comfortable around her. Compared to some unmarried girls he'd met on blind dates before, who were emotionally unstable and a bit spoiled, this woman seemed exceptionally understanding and empathetic. So, he quickly fell head over heels. But unexpectedly, after dating for a while, she directly proposed. If you want to marry me, the bride price has to be sufficient. We have to live in a luxury home and travel the world. More realistically, only when he spent money on her would she show enthusiasm, consideration, and emotional value. If he didn't spend, she'd immediately change her face, becoming indifferent and unresponsive. Later, we learned that the main reason she divorced her ex-husband was because she thought he was too poor and couldn't provide the life she wanted. So, her goal for remarriage is very clear. She must find a man with extremely strong financial power. Honestly, hearing this made me feel a bit helpless. I've always emphasized to everyone that rich people are rich, but they're not fools. Men who can afford to live in luxury mansions like Thompson Riviera, what kind of outstanding women can't they find? How many young, beautiful, high EQ girls actively show interest in them? Wishing is fine, but you have to be realistic. If you've never lived in a luxury home yourself, fantasizing about getting one through marriage is really a bit laughable. Finally, I'd like to say a few words to unmarried guys. If you're considering a divorced woman with a child, calmly ask yourself, are you ready to be a stepfather? Has she truly moved on from her previous relationship? Does she value you as a person or your money? I'm not saying all divorced women aren't worth choosing. Many of them are kind, mature, and know how to manage relationships. But in comparison, unmarried women haven't experienced marital setbacks, so their hearts are often simpler, still holding pure expectations for love. Heartbreak and divorce are two completely different experiences, leaving entirely different inner scars. No need to dismiss everyone with one stroke, but don't play the savior or the disc cutter. I'm not saying all divorced.
不买房、不结婚、不生娃，不是这代年轻人在逃避责任。
Choosing not to buy a house, not to marry, and not to have children is not about escaping responsibility, but the most decisive way today's youth resist the times they live in. No one truly wants to end their bloodline or face old age alone, but reality has forced them into this corner. Look at those who followed the traditional path of buying property, marrying, and raising children, and you'll understand why this generation suffers so much. The 1980s and 1990s generations, once celebrated for rising from nothing, fought their way into the middle class with hard work. Some became IT engineers or specialists, earning annual salaries of 400,000 renminbi, about 56,000 US dollars, plus stock options, thinking life would finally be smooth. Yet, in order to marry and raise children, they bought homes during peak housing prices, draining million yuan savings and piling on millions more in debt. Then came international bilingual schools, charging 200,000 renminbi, about 28,000 US dollars per year. Just when they thought they had secured their future, the property market collapsed, cutting home values in half while mortgage payments stayed the same. Layoffs soon followed. Severance packages kept them afloat for a few months, but many ended up unemployed. Men and women who once stood as proud examples of upward mobility now wore delivery uniforms, working 14-hour days in the rain for Matewan, just to pay bank interest. If the middle class can at least downsize, sell property, cut expenses, switch their children to public schools, what about young workers whose wages are already meager, whose jobs are already exhausting? With plunging housing prices and a shrinking labor market, they have nowhere to retreat. That's why more and more of those born after 1995 and 2000 see through the illusion. The promises of bringing glory to the family or prosperity for descendants are nothing but blood-sucking traps. Their refusal to marry or have children has become their strongest form of protest. The numbers say it all. In 2023, China's fertility rate dropped to 1.01, second lowest in the world, barely above South Korea and less than half the replacement rate of 2.1. In 2024, only 6.1 million couples registered marriages, the lowest in nearly 4 decades. 3 enormous weights crush today's youth: housing costs, the burden of raising children, and the brutal 996 work culture. 12-hour workdays are now standard. 1 day off a month is common. Bodies break down, health problems mount, and even free time is consumed by sheer exhaustion. People can only lie in bed scrolling their phones, too drained for dating or intimacy. Surveys reveal that 65% of office workers have sex fewer than 3 times a month, with 1/3 less than once. Work itself has sterilized their desire for life. And for those who still consider marriage, the harsh reality of bride price and housing prices quickly wakes them up. A Renmin University study found that in 2023, the average cost of marriage reached 334,000 renminbi, about 46,000 US dollars, more than 8 times the average disposable income of 39,000 renminbi, about 5,500 US dollars. In many rural areas, bride prices equal 40 to 50 times the local per capita GDP, meaning a man would need to work 40 to 50 years without eating or drinking just to marry. Even in cities where parents are more lenient about bride price, housing remains the greatest barrier. In 2024, average home prices reached 14,278 renminbi per square meter, about 2,000 US dollars per square meter. A modest 70 square meters apartment costs over 1 million renminbi, about 140,000 US dollars. In first and second-tier cities, this equals 14.3 years of income, assuming not a single cent is spent. Even then, a 30-year mortgage still hangs over their heads. Raising children is an even greater burden. The Ministry of Education reported that in 2024, the average cost of raising a child from kindergarten to university was 1.037 million renminbi, about 145,000 US dollars. With extracurriculars, it easily exceeds 1.5 million renminbi, about 210,000 US dollars. This makes child rearing in China 7 times per capita GDP, the highest in the world. Japan, 4.26, Germany, 3.64, France, 2.24. And money is not enough. Time, attention, and energy are also demanded. For mothers especially, childbirth means at least 6 months away from work, often with long-term setbacks to their careers. Unsurprisingly, by the end of 2024, nearly 70 million women of childbearing age had chosen not to have children, a 40% increase compared to a decade ago. This is the deadlock of today's youth. When work is an endless cycle of 996, when bride price, housing, and education costs rise beyond imagination, they truly have no choice left. Unable to escape systemic exploitation, they resist in the only way they can, through a uterus strike, refusing to reproduce. It is their loudest no to a society that bleeds them dry, their desperate hope that one day The giant machine consuming their lives will finally be shut down.
大家有没有发现啊？很多人说女性拜金，说女性消费特别厉害。
Have you ever noticed how many people complain that women today are overly materialistic, that their spending habits are spiraling out of control? If your immediate conclusion is that this is simply due to women being inherently vain or superficial, then I must tell you, your wisdom is lacking and your perspective is far too narrow. You have failed to see the true essence of the problem. This isn't an individual failing. It is not the fault of women themselves. To be honest, I'm afraid what I'm about to say will offend many, but the truth must be told. What we are witnessing is a meticulously orchestrated commercial hunt that directly targets women, and it has been ruthlessly waged for decades. The behaviors we criticize today are merely the periodic spoils of war from this ongoing campaign. To understand this, let me illustrate with a practical and frankly stark contrast. Imagine a man with a monthly salary of 10,000 Chinese yuan, about 1,400 US dollars. He might drive a used car worth a few $1,000s, and his wardrobe is likely filled with practical brands like Uniqlo. His biggest expense of the year might be a simple thought. Hey, business was good this year, I'll get a new phone. And with that, he lives a pretty comfortable, content life. Now, let's apply that same 10,000 Chinese yuan salary to a woman. What do you think her life looks like? It's highly likely she's posting daily pictures of her new manicure, checking in at some trendy, influencer-hyped restaurant, and ensuring she's the first to own the latest lipstick line that drops. She'll share her thoughts on a niche perfume and plan an entire trip to a famous destination, not for the experience, but for the photo op. But at the end of the month, when she looks at her statements, all she sees is a mountain of credit card debt. Many call this phenomenon being exquisitely poor. But do you think she doesn't realize it? Anyone who looks at their own bills would feel a sense of alarm. The problem is, she has been swept into a commercial vortex, a game with entirely different rules, from which it is incredibly difficult to escape. So how does this hunt operate? It's built on a sophisticated, three-pronged strategy designed to trap and exploit. The first prong is systematic brainwashing through consumerism, transforming commodities into a belief system. Capitalism figured out a long time ago a fundamental truth. It's far easier to make money off women than it is to make money off men with the same income.
Why?
Because their consumption philosophies are worlds apart. A man's consumption is direct and functional. A car is a means of transport. A phone is a tool for communication. As long as it serves its function, it's good enough. A woman's consumption, however, has been ingeniously linked to intangible values, social status, self-worth, emotional fulfillment, and most powerfully, love. Once consumption is tied to these abstract concepts, capitalism found a gold mine that never runs dry. Just open any social media app. You'll see countless voices preaching to women. You need to be good to yourself. But being good to yourself is no longer defined as reading a book or developing a skill. It's defined as buying the newest lipstick, owning that limited edition handbag, and checking in at a fancy cafe. These are not essential needs. They are manufactured needs, created for every season and every mood. Spring demands a new makeup palette. Summer requires whitening serums. Autumn isn't complete without an earth-toned eyeshadow and the first milk tea of the season. Winter calls for a Christmas edition gift box. Products are no longer just items. They are marketed as a cure for the soul. Feeling down?
Buy a bag.
Stressed from work? Get a manicure. Argued with your boyfriend? The amount he spends on you becomes the measure of his love. These messages relentlessly invade women's minds 24/7, 365 days a year, until a habit becomes a faith. The goal is no longer to meet basic needs, but to achieve self-realization through spending, to prove to the world and to oneself, I am living a good life. The second prong of the attack is sowing anxiety for a precision hunt. Once this belief system is in place, the next step is to make them willingly open their wallets. This is achieved by manufacturing anxieties that target their most sensitive spots. There's appearance anxiety, fueled by images of flawless celebrities, which pushes them to buy anti-sugar pills, ultrasonic treatments, and thermage to temporarily forget their perceived flaws. There's social anxiety, the fear of being left behind, triggered by seeing friends checking in at the hottest spots while they're stuck at home. The solution? Go spend money, take pictures, and post them online to prove you're not boring. And then there's the most vicious tactic, emotional anxiety. A man's love is completely commodified. Holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries demand expensive gifts. Otherwise, it's interpreted as a lack of love or care. Men are cornered into using money to prove their love, and women are conditioned to equate the value of a gift with the degree to which they are loved. A narrative is implanted into their subconscious. You're not spending money. You're investing in yourself, pursuing a better life, and defending your love. Every dollar spent feels justified. The final piece of this predatory puzzle is the exploitation of our society's deep-rooted culture of comparison and the distortion of female status. The drive to keep up with the Joneses is weaponized. It becomes a race of consumption. You carry a Gucci bag? Well, I have to get an LV. Social media becomes a stage where everyone performs a better version of their life, with consumption as the primary metric of success. Most ironically, the rise of female empowerment has been twisted. True independence of thought, character, and finances has been replaced by the concept of consumer independence. The question is no longer, are you financially stable, but can you afford to buy the things you want to please yourself? This creates a bizarre logical loop. Women champion independence while simultaneously using their level of consumption, funded by themselves or others, to measure their self-worth and the love they receive. The final consequence of this endless cycle is devastating. Once the floodgates of desire are opened, they can never be closed. A woman whose happiness is built on consumption and comparison will find her threshold for joy becoming increasingly high and extremely unstable. There is always something better, more expensive. There is always someone else living a more glamorous life. This is precisely why marriage rates are declining. When the entire value of a marriage is measured in money, a harsh reality sets in. They look down on those with no money, and they can't reach those who are wealthy. So, let me ask you a final question. In this society, are there more rich people or more people who aren't rich? The answer is all too clear.
婚姻一定不要扶贫，有条件你记住一定要往上走。
Marriage is not an act of charity, nor is it poverty relief. If you are in a position to choose, always remember, marry upward, never downward. Not long ago, I came across a heartbreaking divorce story that perfectly illustrates this lesson. A man, looking back on his life, said with deep regret, "The biggest mistake I ever made was marrying the wrong person." 5 years earlier, when he was 28, he had everything going for him. He held a master's degree from a top university, was working at a major company in Shanghai, and had a promising future with an annual salary between 400,000 and 500,000 renminbi, about 56,000 to 70,000 US dollars. His parents had retired from state-owned enterprises. The family already owned a car and a home, and after graduation, he secured Shanghai residency. To top it off, his parents even bought him an apartment. On paper, his life was on an excellent trajectory. As he reached the age where marriage became a pressing issue, he began going on blind dates. His family introduced many women, but he always claimed there was no spark. Then his parents introduced him to a female doctor, also a master's graduate, whose parents worked in public institutions. Both families considered it a perfect match, equal in education, social standing, and family background. He admitted she was outstanding, well-educated, gentle, and stable in character. But to him, there was no real feeling of love. One day, by chance, he met a younger woman downstairs in his building. She was 2 years younger, exactly his type in appearance, and the attraction was instant. However, her background was very different. She worked at a private company, had only an adult bachelor's degree, her parents were ordinary workers, and she had both a younger brother and a younger sister. Despite this, he thought to himself, I already have a house, I earn enough to support a family, even in Shanghai. I don't need her to contribute much. As long as I like her, that's enough. With that conviction, he ended all contact with the doctor his family had arranged for him, despite his parents' strong objections, and pursued the new girl. After only 3 months of dating, she moved into his apartment. 6 months later, she became pregnant and insisted on marriage. His parents vehemently opposed the union, pointing out the clear gap between the two family circumstances, but he accused them of being elitist and looking down on the poor. Eventually, he overruled them and married her. Her family demanded a bride price of 300,000 renminbi, about 42,000 US dollars. He paid it without question, but instead of bringing the money into the new household, her family used it to buy a home for her younger brother in their hometown. After marriage, she quit her job due to pregnancy and repeatedly asked him for money, much of which ended up going to support her siblings. When her father later fell seriously ill and required about 100,000 renminbi, around 14,000 US dollars for medical expenses, her siblings all claimed they had no money, insisting that since their brother-in-law was well off, he should pay. The husband felt it was unfair, not that he couldn't afford it, but that responsibilities should be shared among siblings. He offered to pay half, but his wife called him cold and heartless. Eventually, he covered the full amount. From then on, every major family issue landed on his shoulders. His in-laws wanted to repair their house, his brother-in-law needed money to marry, his sister-in-law needed tuition for college. Each time, they turned to him. Life became heavier and more exhausting. His wife, once sweet and gentle, grew irritable and demanding. Daily quarrels piled up, and love eroded under the weight of endless obligations. Even his own parents, who had opposed the marriage from the start, remained distant, offering little support. When their grandchild was born, they gave only a token gift. Gradually, regret consumed him. He began to think back to the female doctor his parents had once introduced. Perhaps he had not felt passionate love at the time, but she had been stable, compatible in education and family background, and his parents had wholeheartedly approved. He realized that life with her might have been peaceful and secure. After 5 years of marriage, with their child now 4 years old, the couple divorced. He left the apartment, the one his parents had bought, to his ex-wife so that he would not have to pay child support. In the end, he walked away from the marriage in his 30s with nothing, no home, a failed marriage behind him, and his confidence shattered. He admitted, "I truly regret everything." And this, I always emphasize, is the difference between love and marriage. Love is emotional, irrational, and often based on illusions. The qualities you see at the beginning of a relationship may only be a facade. Feelings can fade, appearances change, and passion dies out. If you marry solely because of love, without considering compatibility, you are setting yourself up for misery. Marriage must be approached rationally. It requires careful judgment. Do the two of you truly complement each other in economic stability, character, and ability? Is the union greater than the sum of its parts? That is what makes a marriage sustainable. You need a foundation of compatibility and then a little affection on top. Love alone is not enough. It is too fragile, too easily altered. So remember this principle. Marriage should always be upward, never downward. Do not treat marriage as charity. Do not marry down to rescue someone. Choose a partner with fewer inherent problems, and your future will also carry fewer problems.
今天这条视频是发给那些想搞对象的女生看的。
This is for the women who are genuinely serious about finding a relationship. For those of you in the no marriage, no kids camp, you can probably move on, because I know you're about to flood the comments arguing that I'm telling women to cater to men. But let's face the cold, hard facts. Do you want to find a partner?
Yes.
And since that's our goal, we must learn to cater to our target audience. Think of it like your job. To land a client, you have to understand and appeal to their needs. You need to stop acting like you're the prize and start acting like a savvy service provider who knows how to close a deal. Yesterday, I reviewed a woman's dating profile, and it was a textbook example of why some people remain single into their 30s. To put it bluntly, your profiles are a disaster. Let's be clear. How you market yourself is the single most critical first step. This step determines whether you get any leads at all. You cannot filter for a high-quality partner if you have no one in your inbox to begin with. The problem is that many of you can't even get past this initial stage. You either attract no one or a steady stream of low-quality men. Many women adopt this defiant, take-it-or-leave-it attitude. Ladies, ask yourself again. Do you actually want a relationship? If the answer is yes, then it's time to get serious about how you present yourself. Let's dissect a real-life failed profile. A 33-year-old woman with a Stanford University degree wrote just 2 lines. The first was a string of generic adjectives: Cancer, cheerful, optimistic, kind. The second was a list of prohibitions: no hookups, no casual flings, not open to divorced men. The only useful piece of information was her height. This profile is a catastrophe. By defensively listing what you don't want, you signal that you've been burned before. But why do you attract these men in the first place? It's because your profile looks so lazy and low effort that people assume you are also low effort and just looking for something casual. A person who is truly serious would never be so careless with their self-presentation. So, here is the solution. Treat your dating profile like a resume for the most important job of your life. It needs to be professional, persuasive, and strategically crafted. Let's imagine I'm 33 and single. Here's how I would build a high-value profile that gets results. First, lay out the foundational facts that signal stability. A Chengdu native, now stably working and settled here. I own my own home and car. If you have these assets, state them. They are markers of stability that matter to a serious partner. Next, address career and finances with responsibility. I work as a teacher and have an annual income of around 100,000 Chinese yuan, approximately 14,000 US dollars, and I have savings. Absolutely do not project the image of a spendthrift. No one wants a partner who is financially irresponsible. Even if you live paycheck to paycheck, start saving now so you can honestly say you have savings. Then, provide a clear picture of your appearance and family background. Height 165 centimeters, well proportioned, with pleasant features. My family is harmonious, and my parents are in good health with their own pensions, so they are not a financial burden. This last point is crucial. It preemptively removes a major source of anxiety for a potential partner. Now for the most important part, demonstrating your altruistic value as a partner. This is where you show what you bring to the table. 1. Domestic capability. State, I know how to cook and am a family-oriented person. If you think this is a lie, then I ask you, can you learn 2 signature dishes? Learn them now. To a man, a woman who can cook signals warmth and home. This isn't a deceitful lie about a fundamental issue, like your age or fertility. It's a harmless, attractive promise that gets you through the door. 2. Emotional maturity. Right. I am reasonable, a good communicator. I don't give the silent treatment during conflicts, and I believe in discussing problems together. 3. Partnership mentality. Add, I believe in a relationship of mutual effort and am not looking for a one-sided dynamic. I am also willing to give and support my partner. 4. Future plans. Clearly state, I am not dink, double income, no kids, and am willing to have children. I like kids. If you are genuinely child-free, you should state that to find your niche. But for the mainstream path to marriage, you must signal you are ready for family life. 5. Hobbies. Avoid listing money-burning hobbies like constant travel, cafe hopping, or yoga retreats. Instead, Choose hobbies that signal a grounded, nurturing personality. In my free time, I enjoy gardening, reading, housekeeping, and the simple, cozy pleasures of daily life. Finally, understand the absolute profile red flags to avoid. Never write, "I'm slow to warm up," or "I'm a very passive person." These are major turnoffs that scream high maintenance. Don't copy other women who write this. They are the veterans on these apps who have been single for years precisely because their profiles are so terrible. The core philosophy here is to think like a marketer with an altruistic mindset. Your profile is your advertisement. It needs to show what value you bring to a partnership before you list your demands. It's exactly like a resume. You don't tell HR about your weaknesses. You highlight your strengths and accomplishments. The job of your profile is to get you the interview. Only when you have a pool of high-quality candidates interested in you do you gain the power to screen and choose the best one. Otherwise, you'll only attract duds and become disillusioned, thinking there are no decent men out there. The truth is, your abnormal profile is preventing you from meeting them. If you find yourself resisting this advice, feeling that it's pandering or inauthentic, then you need to be honest with yourself. If you're not even willing to say a few nice things to make a good first impression, your personality may be too rigid for a successful partnership. So, ask yourself one last time. Do you want a relationship? If the answer is yes, then start by catering to your audience. Solve the options problem first. Once you have a full inbox of interested quality men, you will be the one in control. Treat your profile with the seriousness it deserves and write with sincerity, appeal, and a clear vision of the wonderful partner you can be.
我说过很多遍了，好的男生真的是会被哄抢的。
I've said this so many times before. Good men are scarce resources, and they are always in high demand. The problem is that many women don't understand this simple truth. Some even believe that they themselves are the rare resources men should be competing for, and that men will line up endlessly just to pursue them. Reality, however, is far harsher. Not long ago, a young woman came to me for help. She was born in 1993, stood 1.64 meters tall, had a bachelor's degree, and earned about 100,000 renminbi per year, around 14,000 US dollars. Her looks were average, nothing stunning, but nothing bad either. When chatting, she seemed normal and pleasant enough. Then she said something that completely stunned me. "Fanjia, could you share my profile with the guys? I'm free over the next few days and can meet them one by one." I was speechless. Did she really think this was how dating worked? That men would line up like candidates waiting for an interview, and she could pick and choose at her leisure? Still, I did what she asked and sent out her profile. 3 days passed, and not a single man reached out. When she asked me whether anyone was interested, I had to tell her the truth. Not one. She was surprised, but that's the reality. Good men don't wait around, and weak effort attracts no one. A few days later, a very decent man appeared. He was 1.74 meters tall, had a bachelor's degree, earned about 130,000 renminbi a year, around 18,200 US dollars, and was just 2 years older than her. I asked her if she wanted to talk to him. Her reply? "Oh, I'm at the gym right now. I'll reply tonight when I get home." I waited until midnight. Nothing. The next day, when I reminded her, she said casually, "Sorry, I came home late and forgot." But by that time, the man had already arranged meetings with 2 other women, and his schedule was full for the entire week. That chance was gone. Not long after, another man came along. He was 1.78 meters tall, had a vocational college degree, earned about 180,000 renminbi per year, around 25,200 US dollars, owned a house and a car in Suzhou, and was 3 years older than her. When I informed her, she said, "I'm working overtime tonight. I'll get back to you later." The moment I heard that, I knew it was over. And indeed, nothing came of it. A week later, out of nowhere, she messaged me, "Fanjia, I'm free tonight. Can you introduce that guy to me again?" I could only sigh. Did she really believe a man would sit around for a week waiting for a woman he'd never even met? By then, of course, he was already meeting other women. Then another excellent candidate showed up. He was 1.75 meters tall, had a bachelor's degree, earned about 150,000 renminbi a year, around 21,000 US dollars, and also had both a house and a car in Suzhou. This time, I thought surely she wouldn't waste the opportunity. At first, she agreed immediately. Yes, that sounds good. But less than an hour into chatting, the man came back to me angrily. Fangia, she refuses to meet. I suggested Wednesday, but she said she had to go to the gym. I suggested Friday, but she said she was working overtime. In the end, there was no day she was available. What's the point of this? And what could I say? I just shook my head. I told her plainly, when you come to a matchmaking platform, it's not about sitting back and expecting men to chase you. It's a process where both sides move toward each other and give one another a chance. Truly outstanding men are rare. They don't wait, they don't circle back, and once you let them slip through your fingers, that opportunity is gone forever. As we come to the end of today's video, perhaps there's a certain weight in all of our hearts. We've journeyed together through a series of raw, real-life stories, from the woman with fantastical material demands to the tragedy of a poverty alleviation marriage, from the silent rebellion of a generation crushed by 3 great mountains, to the harsh truths of the dating market, where good partners are truly a scarce commodity. All of these stories, though told from different perspectives, paint a single, vivid picture of the fierce struggle between our personal desires for love and the immense pressures of our time. On one hand, we are ensnared in a commercial machine designed to sow insecurity and equate self-worth with consumer goods. On the other, we face a brutal economic reality where a home and a family have become an almost unbearable burden. Caught between these two forces, love becomes fragile. We find ourselves at a crossroads. Should we follow our romantic hearts or our pragmatic minds? Should we wait proudly to be chosen or proactively seize our own opportunities? But amidst the storm, we are not powerless. If there is one lesson that all these stories point to, it is the power of proactivity and self-awareness. True happiness is not a prize to be won, but a project to be built, with both a strategic mind and an open heart. It demands that we have a strategy, that we market ourselves with the same sincerity we would use to write a resume for the most important role of our lives. It requires us to understand that what we give is just as important as what we get. And so, the final message Chinese Emotion wants to leave you with is this: find your balance. Don't let the fear of getting hurt curdle into an arrogance that causes you to miss precious opportunities. And don't let societal pressure sweep you into a materialist race that isn't yours to run. Write your own love story, one that is pragmatic enough to survive, yet romantic enough to be worthy of a name. Thank you for watching and for being part of this journey. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Chinese Emotion as we continue to explore the many emotional landscapes of modern life. Until next time.